Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to this URBACT webinar with our Knowledge Hub on Social Data Management. My name is Margit Thünemann. I'm from the URBACT Secretariat, and I'm very happy to welcome you here today. A quick word before we start on URBACT as such. URBACT is a European funding program for cities. We are promoting sustainable urban development through cooperation projects, which means we are funding networks of cities across Europe and intercity collaboration and cooperation. And part of this exercise is also to work across networks. So we're doing also exchange between networks. Now we have, and on the next slide, the 4 networks that actually joined for the URBACT Knowledge Hub on social data management. We have One Health for Cities, we have the network Cities at Heart, where it's about city centers, we have URBACT, and Next Gen Youth Work. 4 networks who actually work on very different topics, but they work on a common challenge, and that is social data management. Cross challenges that we often have within URBACT, like our green transition or gender equality, or in this case, digital transition. So we are promoting also this exchange not only between cities, but also between networks. And those 4 networks joined in order to develop a series of webinars. We are now today here at the 4th webinar in this whole series. We started in January and we first looked at what cities actually know. What do they really know about social data? What are their needs? What are their challenges? And how do they turn it into policy? Then we had a second webinar in January on how cities actually collect and manage data for social policies. And every time we looked at a couple of the cities' examples from the networks, but we also invited other cities to join. The third webinar that we had was about how cities and how citizens and the administration interact and how they draft their social policies with data. And today we're here for the 4th and last webinar in this series, and we want to have a closer look into how cities actually measure the impact of social policies with data. And I'm very happy that Liat Rogel is going to moderate this session and give a lot of insight in her expertise and also from the work with the networks and in the Knowledge Hub, because we are finalizing now our cooperation in this part of the Knowledge Hub, and we're going towards the end, the City Festival, where we want to present the work of the Knowledge Hub and collect all the exchange and the knowledge that we found into a guidebook for cities. So just a quick word, still more on the housekeeping for this webinar. We plan to stop at 11:30, so a good an hour and a half to go. It's a public webinar, so it's really open to the public. Still, it's a collaborative workshop. So we're not ready yet with all our answers. The idea is that we exchange and that we also give cities the possibility to ask questions and to give other ideas or further examples that we can still take up for our guide. We are recording the webinar, so just that you're aware. And of course, we will share the slides after this webinar on our dedicated website. If you have questions or remarks, please put them in the Q&A section. We have 2 moments where we also will pick it up in the webinar so that we can answer those questions. And hopefully you stay till the end so that we can also get a little feedback on how you found this webinar. So far from my side, and then I'm very happy to hand over to Liat to start with the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margit, and thank you to our panelists, which I will mention in a moment, and thank you everybody that have joined. We have almost 100 participants, so I'm hoping that this morning is going to be interesting and interactive for everybody. So good morning from my side. And as Margit already mentioned, we are going to speak about measuring the impact of social policies with data. So when we are sort of at the end of the loop and we are working with policies, how can we really measure if they work? And we will see that it will not be exactly like that, but we will also plan for measurement or plan for policy. And we will see that through this webinar, which will be divided in main two parts. So really, the first part is what do we mean by social impact and how it can be integrated into policy. So when we say we are evaluating a policy, we are evaluating an impact. What do we mean by that, and especially social impact? I will give a short introduction to that, and then we will have Massimo Capano and Marica Gagliardi from the city of Cinisello Balsamo, which will tell us about their experience with co-creating indicators for social impact and coordinating an URBACT network about this topic. And the second part will be about really why measuring social impact matters to us and how it can improve the way that we are work and improve our policies. And we will hear from Stevie McGowan from the city of Glasgow and the Centre for Civic Innovation about how they use data in design-oriented matter in the city of Glasgow and especially around child poverty. So I'm very happy that we have great panelists here from two cities. One just ended an URBACT network, and the city of Glasgow was in an URBACT 3 network. So I'm also happy to have this combination of different generation within URBACT, sorry. So just a reminder about the data cycle in policy making that we saw from the first webinar on, okay? And our focus today will be that, of course, with a data strategy, you have all the process from the challenge, the acquisition of data, the analysis, and we arrive to policy and the evaluation of it. And we have to make sure that this is really looping so that the data that we are collecting and that we are analyzing and even publishing are always going back. And this will really be the focus of the webinar of today. And this process here will be also the main element in our guidebook that we are working on to really show how you can fit in every part of this process. So what is really social impact? And there are different definitions. This is the one that we have used with URBACT network. So social impact is the effect that actions or initiative have on individual communities and society as a whole. And of course, it can be positive and negative. And the positive and negative refer to the change that really people have in their life that results from specific interventions. Okay, so if we have a policy and this policy has a series of actions or elements that initiatives that we are going to do, we really want to know how those specific actions or those specific initiatives has actually influenced people's lives. And we will see that we go beyond the immediate result and we go to more long-term results when we speak about social impact. So I want to ask you with just to think about it, so you don't have to intervene directly, but just think about it. Maybe note it down, write it on a paper next to you, or keep it in your head for your city or in your life. What is positive social impact? What would be positive social impact, right? Because this is one question that we always ask ourselves when we even start to design a policy. No? Where do we want to be? What is this main impact that we want to have on people, communities, and society as a whole? And now that you have noted it down, I can share 6 examples that came again from the work with URBACT. So in a city, for example, when I'm thinking about positive social impact objectives or goals, I can think about people having a sense of place. So really something that contributes to their identity and pride, or social cohesion, so the cooperation and the collaboration between different groups, ecological well-being, so that the space or my regeneration project really improve the air quality or the water quality or the biodiversity, so that I am well also in this environment and that the environment is well. Access to safe and inclusive public spaces, which is the availability of spaces for everybody so that they can interact, have community engagement, recreational activities, and so on. I want to have healthier communities. So I want the improvement in the physical and mental well-being for everybody. And finally, for example, economic vibrancy. So I would like my city to thrive from an economical point of view with local shops, with job creations, with entrepreneurship opportunity. And when we have discussed this, for example, it becomes a little bit more clear what do we mean by positive social impact. This is not the whole thing, okay, but it is part of it. It is also very clear how difficult it is to measure, okay? Because all of that, for example, how can I say that after some years, my citizens really feel a sense of place? No, it is very challenging to think about it. And when we go a little bit to the theory behind social impact, there are some key aspects that we need to think about beyond measurability, which is one of them that I just mentioned. So first of all, and this is a definition of key aspects by Tiresia in the Politecnico of Milan, it defined the social impact as a change in the social environment or economic outcomes that are caused by organization or policy. Three elements. Intentionality means that the change did not just happen by chance. Okay, my intention was to create this exact change. Okay, so I have to have it in mind, and it will be very important for what we're going to hear further on. We need to be able and measure it, okay, both in quantitative and qualitative terms, and this will be another aspect that we will see. And we need to, additionality is maybe a bit more complex to explain in words of market mechanism, but if we take it to the city and to the URBACT methodology, we think about hearing all the voices, combining all the areas of interest and all the stakeholders that are involved. So these three aspects of social impact in the theory help us in practice to actually make sure that we are speaking about social impact and not something else, okay? The circle, let's say, of social impact combines also very well with the circle of data strategy, says that we are trying to prove and improve constantly our social impact, our initiatives, and if they make social impact. And the evaluation happens all the time. So it happens ex ante before we are starting with our initiatives. It happens in itinere, so while we are doing, and it happens ex post, so after. And this is very important because very often we think about evaluation only as the final aspect. So we do things and then someone says, what have you reached? And we do an evaluation, we tick the boxes. And to think about evaluation as something that happens throughout the whole cycle is very, very important for social impact. The measurement itself or the evaluation is really difficult and very challenging for many, so much that organizations, cities included, sometimes do not even start with the evaluation of impact because it seems so challenging. First of all, it is very long term. So sometimes to see the impact and the change in people's lives, we need to see years ahead. And this makes it, of course, difficult for politics, as we have 4 years mandates, for example. So it would be difficult to see the results within a mandate. But it's even difficult for us as human beings, right? So if someone said, you are doing something and then you need to see in 10 years how it influenced your life, it is quite difficult for us to think about that. It is often qualitative. So, for example, a sense of belonging, like we said before, and it roots in the experience and the perception that we have. So it is difficult to capture and it is different from everybody. So it is subjective. And it means that the value and the meaning really depend on who you are talking with. This is why we will see also in the Cinisello Balsamo example, it is very important to share what do we mean by this impact before we even start measuring it. Because otherwise, again, we arrive to the end and we realize that I meant something, but you meant something else. It is complex, it is multi-layered, okay, to capture the full picture. So it is not easy, okay? However, if we think it is important, because we would like to demonstrate that our actions had a positive impact, that we need to start somewhere. And one example of a network that really worked on that, so to understand how to bring more the culture of evaluating and measuring social impact, is URBACT. You will hear about it from Massimo and Marika in a moment. But the goal of the network, which I had the pleasure to be the lead expert for, so I know the work very well, is really to overcome those challenges and start and bring this culture and data culture that we will hear also from Glasgow within the organization. We used mainly a tool which is very often used when we speak about social impact, which is the theory of change. Okay? The theory of change is a series of logical steps that define how and why certain interventions will lead to a desirable change. Okay? So it can look like a project management tool. In fact, it is a project management tool, but when we think that we want to reach impact. The way it works, I will explain very briefly, is that, of course, the first element is to understand the problem, the challenge. What is it that we are tackling? And then we jump here. So we don't describe the activities, output, and outcomes in a linear way, but we try to think, where do we want to be in so and so years, in such time, no? So we define ourselves the impact that we want to see. And even better if we co-define the impact that we want to see with relevant stakeholders. So we can say, I would like the ecological well-being in my city to be much higher. I would like people to breathe better. I would like them to be healthier, and so on and so forth. And I define it in a very bold way, because this can be, again, long-term, right? And then I go back and I say, with the resources that I have or that I can have, what would be the activities that I can start doing in the direction of the impact? And it is an hypothesis. I am not sure. But I have an idea that if I do these activities, then they will produce an output. So if I improve my cycling routes in the city, I will have more cyclists. Okay? Very easy. So it's an hypothesis again, that I will have more people that are using the bicycle. Okay? And then if more people will use the bicycle, okay, then what will happen? I will have a safer road, a cleaner air, no, some outcomes that I could have from the fact that I have more cyclists. And then what would be the impact? People will live better because they will breathe better air, because they can walk in the streets without problems, because their health is better, because they are cycling more. Okay, and this will be the impact. But all of those are hypotheses. I am not sure. So the evaluation happens throughout the whole time. Every time I decide, okay, we'll do something in order to increase the amount of cyclists, this is of course only an example, I will need to evaluate it immediately. Do I have more cyclists that are using the roads or not? Maybe not. So then I have to go back to my activities. Maybe I have to go back to framing the problem, because maybe the problem is not an infrastructure, maybe it's cultural. Okay, so I always have the possibility and need to evaluate and go back. But the impact here remains my main goal, okay, my main vision. So using that allows us also to understand that the evaluation or the measurement of impact do not come only at the end. They are all through the process, okay? Um, with URBACT, we as a final product for the network, every city that participated had in the end a theory of change that is also illustrated and drawn, where you can see the overall vision for the city. This is Bielsko-Biała in Poland. The mission statement, so sort of the starting point, and then you see the activities, the outputs, the outcomes, and the impact. Okay, and they can be divided, for example, here in different areas: housing, space, economy, and local community, right? So every city has that. And this means also that you can communicate to your local stakeholders, to your citizens, where do you want to be? And what is it that you are doing? And we will hear later also from Stevie that the communication of what you're actually doing or what we are intending to do in a yearly matter really goes back also here. So this is the overall. And then how do you speak to your citizens about every part of those activities or outputs or outcomes that are coming in? And you can find this catalog of the 9 theories of change of the URBACT cities in the URBACT website, going to URBACT, and you can see some of those examples together with some words of introduction. And this gives me a very good momentum to introduce you to the city of Cinisello Balsamo. And I introduced Massimo Capano and Marica Gagliardi, which will tell us about how the city of Cinisello Balsamo, also through the participation in URBACT, defined and co-defined social indicators with a very interesting participatory approach. So the word is yours. I will share your slides.
Okay. Thank you, Liat, and hi everybody. I'm Massimo, and I will introduce you briefly the city, because our idea is to give you a concrete example of a process to find indicators or our way to work on the social impact. Because of course every city worked on the process with Liat, and everybody has a theory of change, but each city worked especially in some way, with different topics. Our topic was to work precisely on the urban regeneration programs. Because the city of Cinisello Balsamo has a big tradition of urban regeneration program since 1990, because was a city of workers originally, not originally, but in the last part of the last century. And the city was a protagonist of a big transformation, because most of the big company and big factories closed, and so we needed to revitalize the city and regenerate some areas totally abandoned. And so we started to work with the national programs. But in few years, we started to approach to the European programs, and so we we worked a lot in this way. But the problem was that even if we had a lot of regeneration programs, we didn't have a real system of evaluation about the social impact of these programs. And so the key challenge for us was to find a strategy to have a real system of evaluation of our urban regeneration intervention, and in order to create a common framework to link projects, measure results, and communicate them clearly inside and outside the municipality. Of course, our idea was to also to involve really the local stakeholder and the citizen, and you will see later what was our process. Next slide, Zliat. Of course, we were focused really on the role of the local stakeholder. We call it a catalyst. And our idea was to implementing the authority, promoting capacity building and fostering co-creation and innovation, aimed to strengthening the human and social capital of our local community. This is very important because when we talk about brain drain, we think about the brain, but we lost a lot of human capital that we lost because we are really close to Milan. And so the challenge for us is also to contrast the attractiveness of the city of Milan. And so the idea was to really work very well at the local level to understand how to keep the citizen and the human and social capital in the city. As the lead partner, we of course coordinate and stimulate the transnational exchange and good practices and competencies, of course. And but our main topic was to translate and share methodological reflections into local practice, because of course we create a group inside the municipality involving other sectors of the municipality, not only the urban area, but also the social area, also the cultural area, and also the educational sector. And promoting a workshop also with citizens and local stakeholders, and of course the municipal administration, meaning the political, the decision makers. Our idea was to, the key point is that we worked at multi-level capacity building, so individually, at institutional level, and also at working on the territorial competencies, meaning we work with the third sector, so the social providers, social services provider, and also cultural association, sport association, and so on. And also our institutions like schools, like the church, and our stakeholders, of course, citizens. This is just an overview of our theory of change. It was very important for us to start with a clear idea of the process, and this is the starting point to work with our expert involved in at local level here in Milan, in Cinisello Balsamo, sorry, to work on precisely to define the social the social impact indicators for us. I leave the floor to Marika to go on to the presentation.
Thank you, Massimo. And one big point in our process was to engage stakeholders. And as you know, social impact is the three factors of the social impact, intentionality, additionality, and measurement are all three important. But especially in measurement, we focused, and the municipality tried to do a very step forward by providing a set of quality indicators through an active citizens engagement process, of course, helped by a professional support. We did a lot of events, and we used a lot of URBACT methodological tools like Newspaper of Tomorrow, the Theory of Change, but also we use narrative workshops, visual props, interviews, and also art initiative to collect a lot of stories. These stories helped the creation of what people expect to what they expect to have in a very positive impact way. But this was also a space for expression and co-design, and this provide a space also for people to share what they thought, and also this helped to recreate also a sense of trust in institution, because of course they in a lot of years, as Massimo said, there were have been a lot of projects, but the feeling was that there was a fragmented work on the territory. So in a certain way, we rebuilt a sense of trust of what was lost. And our ULG was composed by our colleagues from the municipality service departments, but also by some representative of the elderly civic center, but also sports association and representative from schools, so educators, and from the parish, but also the neighborhood, the inhabitants of this special neighborhood, Crocetta. And we worked to create a set of indicators to guide action in a structured and consistent way, a common language for social impact across projects. So these indicators, this set of quality indicators have been divided into 7 areas. This because these areas were the translations of what all the information from the ULG raised. So these were the most important areas that they recognized. So urban and architectural quality, quality of public space, quality of housing provision, quality of employment, social quality and citizens' well-being, cultural quality, and environmental quality. So the result is a set of indicators that assess the quality level of the urban regeneration project, useful for measuring the overall useful for measuring the overall social impact of the interventions. Next. Here we are. This is an example because, of course, it was difficult to create a measurement system, and of course, it's something that we have to test. And but the starting point is the indicator is the set of indicators for each quality. This is an example for the cultural quality. And there are, in this case, for example, there are 5 indicators, and for each indicators, we try to provide a set of checklist of indicators itself for a checklist. So basically, this is a tool that help to assess the quality of a project. Just to give you an example, for the cultural quality, there is the first indicator is a recognition of cultural heritage. So to extent to which local memory and testimonies are visible and accessible to residents. In this case, to assess if there is a high engage or not, we used a checklist. In this checklist that can be enriched or can be just used like the one that we provide. In this checklist, there are some topics like the use of preserved and transformed heritage, the attention to social history and testimonial values, the perception of historical continuity, the community capacity to narrate and transmit its heritage, the percentage of residents identifying specific heritage elements as a representative of their community. So in this case, for example, you work a lot with also due to the identity. So this is just an example, but of course it was also difficult to focus on this, and now it could be it seems a little bit difficult, and it is also for us. But it's just to give you an example that each indicators of each area can provide an overview of what the project is. So it could be a tool to assess ex ante or ex post an intervention. Of course, if you do it ex ante, you can do like an assessment of what is the starting point, what is the situation right now. But if you are planning a new impactful project, you can use this element to reach a specific quality assess. So every step could be you can pilot every step using these suggestions.
Can I just a little thing? The checklist you see here is not closed; is open because these are just some examples that we use to help our colleagues mainly to understand how to use the tool. But it's open because, of course, if you use for different areas, does mean that you need to adjust the checklist to the area. So this is important because this is one of the elements that help you to involve the citizen to define the checklist. Okay, not only the
Exactly.
the colleagues. Okay, next.
So thanks to this capacity building approach and methodological approach, our city will try to adopt a new way of working, putting people at the center of the process. And right now, the city plans to extend this approach to upcoming projects and share findings with other departments and citizens, fostering impactful and lasting change together. The process was not easy, and the stakeholder expectations were high. After this journey, many stakeholders still have expectation regarding the next steps. And but what we really learned is how important it is to strengthen internal capacity within the municipality, and also to create a local stakeholder engagement in the process in order to achieve a project with a positive impact.
Okay. Just one thing, our idea is to work with the decision makers and the management to reach one goal mainly, to put these indicators, so this tool at the center of the program of the municipality. Okay. And just to give you an example, maybe some of you know it, know about it, is a sort of a youth check that you put it inside the program of the city, and you must use it in your documents. Okay, this is the idea, our main idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liet. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Massimo and Marica, really, for this presentation. I think it was great to hear how you applied that and how you intend to apply that, and even to know that the indicators are open and still working on. And I think when you see the checklist and when you see the indicators, it becomes quite clear also that if you need to launch a call for projects or for proposals and so on, you can use already this list or this structure that you have to ask for specific projects, and even we had it in the network to think about procurement and so on and so forth. So it is really can be a base for all of that. So we opened the floor for questions. So Mar, I leave the floor to you to see if anything came about.
Yeah, actually, we have some of the participants that are asking where they can download the checklist. So I don't know if this is public. Massimo and Marica, if you can answer us on that.
At the moment are not available because they are an internal document, but we are working on understand how to use them just to also help maybe other cities to work on this, and also to share feedbacks, because it's a challenge for us, but probably to use them, but it probably would be a challenge also for other cities. So maybe we can really work together, maybe in another URBACT on one of these areas. So it's something that we are thinking about.
In the meantime, that we have other questions. I have one. I have note some words like this idea that you said, no, that for you it was a process to build trust with your local stakeholders. So I understand, no, it was a process where you try to involve, you try to really understand, no, which were these topics, that for them were relevant, and how eventually you will measure this impact. But how about the other side, and actually this is related to this previous question about implementation within your organization and within the municipality, how all this process received, which were the barriers that maybe you have experienced? I know maybe it's a tricky question. So feel free to
for this question.
Thank you. We love you, Mar. And no, it's been really difficult at the beginning, honestly. Not exactly in the first meeting with the colleagues, but during the process, we have seen that we find really big resistance from the public, how do you say, lavori pubblici, urban sector, mainly. And so for them it's been very difficult because of course they don't mind about the, honestly, I have to say this, but not because I think my colleagues are not good workers, but because they have a different logic, no? They have different perspective of course, and for them it's not very easy to understand how it's important to involve the citizens, because they have clear objective. They have to finish the work. They have to finish everything. So from them, we had a big resistance, but not from the social area, not from the educational area, not from the cultural area. And because our colleagues were really involved and they're really committed, honestly, to work with us and with the citizen to define the checklist and the indicators. Has been a really nice and interesting work also to put together the citizen with the colleagues in the same moment, and they worked very well together.
Yeah.
And also
actually
between colleagues.
Yeah, we had more or less the same question in the chat. So I think if you want to extend a little bit, there was someone that actually wanted to know the same thing.
Yes, about the building the internal capacity, no? So you also mentioned it at the end that it needs to start internally, no? So that you can really have the ability and the possibility of then going out and doing that. And you said that you brought a professional support to help you with that. How do you think of doing this in the future? So, now the URBACT network is over, and how will this capacity building continue internally?
I think we are quite optimistic because our management really is really involved. They think is hard, but is hard process. But we have several tools inside the municipality because in Italy we have, of course, a level of programming there are several level of program inside the municipality. So we are optimistic because they think we can put it inside our performance indicators because this is important. If you don't work on the performance indicators, the public employees are feel not involved. So this is a trick. This is of course, is not nice to think about this, but we have to do it. Otherwise, it's very difficult to have an impact inside.
Just I add just one thing. What we did and what we will continue to do is capacity building of the human resources, because in this process we did not simply meet. We also provide some master classes for our colleagues and also for us. So we focused on some topics. Formazione, sì. We did a lot. A lot
learning sessions.
Learning sessions. We also experienced it a lot ourselves. So we, how can I say, we act. There was an active learning. This created a good environment to grow, and that's what we will do also in the next months. We will try to continue this capacity building because it's a process that you need to plan intentionality again. So that's what we are planning to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marika and Massimo.
Thank you.
This is great to hear, and I am sure that things will move forward. And if I add from my point of view, in these years that we also managed to work together, there were some moments in which you say, you are frustrated because something didn't work or is not working, or people are against it, and when you are in this loop of evaluation and hypothesis, it is difficult, but you can tell yourself, okay, this did not work. So what I expected to happen did not happen. Why didn't it happen? Okay, I go back and I go back to the loop. So you are not so much in the mood of failure or nothing can work, but I'm testing things, no? And I'm trying to get there, and the objective is clear, but maybe what I did was not the right way, or the time, or the people. So I think that it also shows in the way that you work, and very happy to hear it from you. And I look forward to the future of that as well. Okay, we go on with the second part of the webinar, and this is a bit of why it is so important to actually measure the impact. What are we doing with these results that we have? So we saw now the co-design of indicators, and then let's imagine that we have a beautiful project and so on. What happens then to collecting, showing, and what do we do with the results? And also how it helps us with what we call wicked problems, those problems which are really complex and that cannot be taken, only from one side, that we need to tackle from several sides. And here, my contribution is I want to bring you a little bit of the experience of URBACT 3 Network Roof, which I had the pleasure to work with. And here we had a network of 9 cities that work on homelessness, and especially a housing solution for ending homelessness. So not managing the problem, but really ending the issue of homelessness. And part of that was also the collection of relevant data about the homeless. And we had quite a lot of conversations and even discussions about data and the usefulness of data. And in the end, let's say, for example, many cities told us, we have loads of data. We have so much data, as much as you want, but we don't know what to do with that. Or some people told us that the quality of data is not so good. So we arrived to the conclusion that, first of all, data is useful for us to frame the scale of the problem in terms of homelessness. How many people do I have in my city? How big is the problem? Okay. To enable a comparison between cities, region, states, so that I can say my city is going better than another one, or my region is going worse than another one, and so on and so forth. To evaluate existing solutions. So if I just implemented something for the homeless, the collection of data will allow me to say if it is working or not, but also to design and develop other coherent solutions with what I'm doing. So this is more of the design oriented data collection, and to create, of course, civil and political awareness, to influence decision, to make dedicated funding schemes. I need to show the numbers, right? So we agreed that back then in ROOF, it is very important that is for problem solving and not judgment, because some cities did not want to count the homeless, because it's not nice maybe to hear that your city has many homeless people, right? So I could be judged by that. I prefer not to know. I prefer not to do it, right? This image that we used a lot during ROOF, and in fact, indeed, it's not a new image. So the data that you see here is not maybe so relevant anymore, but I use it in order to show you that we were looking at this image of data that said how much the amount of homeless increased or decreased in Europe and in European countries. And very clearly, you could see that only one country actually changed and decreased the amount of homeless. The rest increased. So, of course, there is a crisis, and the obvious thing to say is we need to do something, and maybe there is one country that is doing something right. So maybe we can go and learn from Finland. It is indeed this way. But it was a bit tricky also, this image, because we then realized that every country, and sometimes even every region or every city, counts the homeless differently. So what do we mean by homeless is different. Some people count only the people on the street. Some people count only the people that come to receive services. Some people count also people that live in non-adequate housing, which are defined homeless, but maybe we don't count them. And then there are the hidden homeless. A lot of women, for example, unfortunately, are suffering hidden homelessness, meaning that they are being used by people to have an accommodation, okay? But actually, otherwise, they would be without a home. So the way that you count and the methods are really important in order to even start and compare. We saw that there are roughly two approaches for counting the homeless: counting literally, so going in the street or in the services and really counting, or collecting registration material, right? But again, if we don't have a uniform definition of the types of homelessness, maybe we are counting different things, okay? For example, people on the street not always are homeless. There are people on the street that are collecting money from people, but they are not homeless, okay? Data collection challenges in the case of homelessness, of course, and not only, it is difficult to count. People do not want to be counted, for example. They would hide, they would shy from it. They would not want to leave their names or their data. It costs a lot to count. It costs a lot to make these systems of counting, and there are many privacy issues around it, okay? And we asked ourselves also in group, what do we really need, the quantitative or the qualitative? So do we need the numbers, and do the numbers alone help us, or do we also need to know the story of a person which is homeless to really understand what would be, for example, the solutions that are offered? Probably both, probably a good combination of both, but there was a lot of discussion, because if you need funding, maybe you need to decide which kind of data collection you want to move with first. So yes, we had the idea that it is important to count the homeless to understand the situation better, but it is only true if you are measuring the right thing. We think it is good to find suitable solution, okay, but only if you keep on measuring that your solutions actually made a difference. Otherwise, we don't know if the solutions that were intentional, but we don't know if they worked. And to raise awareness, of course, but you need not to be afraid of raising awareness and telling people. So we will hear very soon from Stevie. It would probably be difficult also to speak about child poverty, right? And to admit that in your city you have such and such people that suffer that. But if your objective is to raise awareness, then you should not be afraid of that. So back to the cycle, which we've seen also in the beginning. The starting point is the understanding of the problem, but we really need to always keep on pushing and loop back to policy, loop back to policy design, okay? And this is why we thought that it is a good idea to invite Stevie McGowan here from Glasgow to tell us a little bit about the work in Glasgow on measuring not only child poverty, but we will see that, and what are the outcomes, and if I have to say also, how do you work? So we heard from Cinisello Balsamo that they have now a method and so on, and the future work will also be of creating a governance model, a team that is actually able to carry on this work, because otherwise, who does that? Who is responsible for that? And from Stevie, we can already hear a little bit also of a type of organization internal to the municipality that does that already. So Stevie, I stop the sharing and I give you the floor, and feel free to share your screen.
Thank you.
I remind everybody that you can write your questions and comment in the Q&A while Stevie is talking.
Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. 1 second. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining the session, and thank you to wonderful Leah for asking me to come along today. As you know, I'm from Glasgow in Scotland, where it's always cold and we do everything quickly to stay warm, even talking. So I will, however, do my best to speak slowly this morning. So I'm Stephen McGowan. I'm the Design and Innovation Lead at the Centre for Civic Innovation in the Municipality of Glasgow. I'm also a design expert with the Design Council and an associate designer with the V&A Dundee, where I feed into design policy nationally. Today, I'd like to take you on a short journey through how we design for social good in Glasgow, specifically how we combine design, data and collaboration to address real challenges faced by communities, and how that work is shaping public service reform and policy development in the city. At the Centre for Civic Innovation, our work is grounded in helping the city better understand people's life experiences and translating those insights into meaningful change. We focus on 5 core activities: solving complex problems with people, developing new ways of working, understanding what people want and need, creating knowledge and building capacity, and ultimately it's about understanding and addressing poverty. These pillars help us ensure we're working on the right problems, not just repeating the same approaches. In Glasgow, our child poverty programme has undertaken significant and thoughtful exploratory work to reimagine our current approach.
We have Stevie blocked, right? Yes, let's wait for a second. Stevie,
Sorry,
you were blocked for a moment.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, I'll just start this screen again. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
So, sorry. So, in Glasgow, our child poverty programme has undertaken significant and thoughtful exploratory work to reimagine.
Stevie, we do not see the screen though.
Oh, God.
No worries. There you go.
This is why I colour in for my job, not use computers. Okay, right, let me get this bit back. So, third time lucky. In Glasgow, our child poverty programme has undertaken significant and thoughtful exploratory work to reimagine our current approach to tackling child poverty. Focusing on people, place and data, we've established the conditions necessary to secure whole system change to address inequalities and disadvantage. To redesign services that allow communities to flourish, we must foster trust, build stronger community connections, and empower individuals to be part of the decision-making process in their communities. Developing a stronger system where we work more collaboratively, share resources, and have a collective vision with our third sector will empower the Council to develop asset-based systems and infrastructure that create a citizen-centred culture where we listen to our people and empower them to participate. The fight against child poverty in Glasgow is real. 26% of our children live in poverty, which is 25,690 children. Each year we produce the Child Poverty Report in Glasgow. Its purpose is to support those working to alleviate child poverty, inform decisions and inform resource allocation, providing a shared evidence base for the city. Promoting a design-led citizen-centred approach requires sustained effort and culture change. We've developed a model based on the Design Council's Double Diamond, a framework for innovation focused on people and planet. This was designed across work streams including tackling poverty in the city's employability system and tackling climate change. Using design, data and collaboration, we explore innovative ways to solve societal challenges that lift families out of poverty. Working directly with more than 10,000 colleagues, citizens and community organisations in the last 3 years, this approach is inspiring a network of city changemakers with an ecosystem of trust, strong community connections and empowered citizens. The Child Poverty Programme in Glasgow has implemented this innovation framework to support this public service reform agenda. The framework provides a strategic and structured approach to delivering public service reform in the city. It enables partners across the system to work in a consistent and coordinated way, supporting collective learning, shared understanding, and evidence-driven decision-making. It is our rapid learning system for systemic change and capacity building. It provides a clear pathway from ideas to impact, ensuring innovation is aligned, tested, and ready to scale. The framework helps to build shared understanding of families' experiences, prioritise and test ideas and systems and services, strengthen decision-making, and keep citizens at the centre of everything we design. We bring together multidisciplinary teams that include designers, data specialists, researchers, storytellers, project managers, economic development specialists, third sector colleagues, academics, graphic support, and subject matter experts. The game changer for us, though, has been not only working in multidisciplinary teams, but rather multi-agency teams, working together on the same projects, in the same rooms, with a structured and facilitated methodology to support real and impactful innovation. Colleagues from across the municipal team, from finance and economic development to communities and financial inclusion colleagues, are working in collaboration with third sector colleagues, city partners in health and social care, housing providers and more, embedded in project teams together with a shared vision. Ending family poverty is not on the agenda, it is the agenda. This mix allows evidence, experience, technical skill and creativity to work together deliberately and effectively. Throughout our process, data is a key component. It helps us understand challenges across the city, but no single data set ever gives us the full picture. We draw on multiple sources and methods, combine quantitative and qualitative insights, and build a deeper understanding of lived experiences. By weaving insights together, we create a more holistic and human view of each challenge. The data, and more importantly, the insight we develop, is used in many ways within the city. As mentioned, it contributes to the annual report. The report combines both qualitative and quantitative data, and storytelling is a really strong element of the report. We strive to elevate the voices and experiences of both people living in poverty, but those also working hard across the city to alleviate the challenges. The Child Poverty Dashboard is a tool we've developed to allow colleagues throughout the city to better understand the landscape and support decision making, helping them prioritise resources and focus budgets. There's a QR code on screen, and Leah will share the slides later if anyone's interested, and you can have a go at the dashboard. We also use data to strengthen our research around engagement and research planning, resource prioritisation, and strengthening data sharing partnerships. Our combined design and data approach has influenced major developments within the city. The Child Poverty Programme itself was the development of the initial Child Poverty Report. The Scottish Government set up a Child Poverty Pathfinder based on the early data work, and that has then developed into a 10-year Child Poverty Programme in Glasgow. The city's been able to identify and target efforts in 10 booster areas within the city. Initially, these allowed us to focus the Child Poverty Programme in those areas, but policy and strategy across the municipality has now shifted to be targeting those booster wards across all services. We've developed a number of data sharing partnerships, including an exciting partnership with the Government's Department of Work and Pensions, who've recently allowed us special permission to actively target citizens who we know are living in poverty, using their data sets and combining them with ours. This could be a real game changer in this space, and we're being seen as a national trial. We've also established a working partnership with Glasgow's Health Determinants Research Collaboration, which is a partnership between the municipality, a number of universities in the city, and health and social care partners, with the objective to embed research, learning and data even further in the innovation framework, changing culture and practice across the city. By working place-based, multi-agency and person-centred, we're creating a significant culture shift. We design and test viable policy and service prototypes, foster a learning culture, build leadership capability for change, strengthen multi-agency capacity, and identify both successful practice and areas needing improvement. Ultimately, this work is about readying leadership for change at all levels of the city, building and empowering multi-agency change capacity for true public service reform. Skills such as analytical thinking, resilience, flexibility, leadership, and social influence are becoming increasingly essential. This reinforces the importance of design, systems thinking, and evidence-led decision-making in future-proofing the workforce across the municipality. There's plenty for us to do and many challenges ahead, but in our city, our slogan is "People make Glasgow," and innovation is in our DNA. Thanks for your time this morning, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Stevie. Thank you so much. Beautiful presentation. You did mention to speak slowly, even though it's not keeping you warm in the cold Glasgow. Thank you, really. And it also gives, really a sense of, I mean, we saw Cinisello and now we see you, and somehow you can see an invisible line that says, okay, where Cinisello can be in some years when you're working with that. So I think that this is very important for us. And also the, let's say, such concrete elements of how the data actually changed policy and how these reports and the whole work around child poverty actually changed the policy. Mar, do we have any questions, or do you want to share any questions with Stevie?
We don't have questions yet. So while we are waiting for them, that I'm sure that we will have. I have one question. I will try to put my mind together. But how do indicators maybe have changed? Because this is a long, as Liat says, this is a long trajectory, 10 years on working on this problem. So at which point do you had the need to make the way you were evaluating the things? That would be my first question. And another topic that I wanted to discuss either with Stevie and also with Cisinello team, and it's a discussion that we had internally here, with Liat and the rest of the experts when we were preparing the content, is that sometimes it means that qualitative and quantitative are two different goals, and I really like when you put together this idea that quantitative is something that it needs to be measurable, even though it's complex, it's difficult, but we need to be able to measure things if we want to take this into policy making. So that would be my two questions.
Okay. So the first one, in terms of how things have changed, I think initially a lot of our work was about actually just understanding the problem. So in terms of developing solutions and things like that, in terms of child poverty solutions, I wouldn't say there are huge strides in it. It's more about actually understanding how we have to work differently to tackle that. So a lot of the work has been done to create the conditions to now really be working in depth. So we were able to influence policy, for example, to identify key areas to work in. We've looked at creating a whole family wellbeing fund within the city, so merging budgets that were originally, excuse me, separate siloed budgets are now coming together to combat fighting poverty. The city itself, in terms of its community planning partners, which is all of the kind of key public service providers in the city, they have a plan now, a 10-year plan that is child poverty as the focus for everyone, and they've started to change their management structures. So we now have a leadership team that is no longer looking at siloed service challenges. They're actually working as a collective and setting the agenda from there. We've brought together the multi-agency teams and have been testing that working and stuff. So we're now in a position where we have real live projects up and running. Being able to, where data has been used to that point is about shaping how we do that, bringing the funding together and all that kind of thing. We have, with it running alongside that in the city, we've developed a performance management framework, which is, again, how we then judge ourselves, and that has involved the third sector, all public services to pull that together. At this stage, we're also now working with citizens to build the measurements there. Really importantly, that is now embedded in the work that we are doing within the innovation framework. So that how we measure ourselves, and also understanding we're trying to pull that together as a tool moving forward. So there are lots of gaps. So identifying where we can measure things and where we would like to measure things are quite different. And understanding, okay, we can't measure that at the moment, so how do we begin the process of being able to do that? So there's lots of work ongoing in that space as well. I can't remember what the second question was. So,
You started answering it almost, because it was about the qualitative and the quantitative
sorry.
element.
So in that regard, I think the hard data initially gives us that picture, but very, very quickly we can see that doesn't really tell you about people. So right from the outset, using that design-led process, it's about involving everybody, and people talk about lived experience being at the table. And one of the kind of mistakes I think that is often meant means that in this case, all that should be people in poverty need to be there, and that is very important, but also the people who work in that space who are delivering services, the people who are setting policy. We need all of their experience together to try and tackle a wicked problem like this. So again, within our teams, all of those people are represented at all times, and a big part of the research plan where we have academics from the university embedded in our team. We have our own researchers, we have third sector partners have their designers here. The whole focus of the first 3 or 4 sections of our framework are about going out and speaking to people, understanding their stories, which then unlock, it's a lot easier to sell someone's story as opposed to selling numbers. So we try and bring the two things together, and you'll be able to see if you have a look at any of the reports, they're very strong on storytelling. They use the data to support that. One over the other doesn't really work when you start to solve the problems. You need them both. However, what I would say when you're kicking off, having the hard data and the numbers is what unlocks the understanding of where you need to start speaking to people. So if you're having to make a choice from a budget perspective, I would say definitely start from that end. So we did a lot of work with data scientists and data owners across the city initially to kind of really gather a picture of where we could see the problems and then tackle it with people.
I take with me like 2 ideas that I think that that's really important. This thing, no, that in this process you are also identifying continuously which is the gap, no, in the problem that you want to measure. I think this is it's important to have the data, but at the same time knowing the data that you want to have in the future. And I think that this is the point, no, with our Italian team is there, no, that they now really know what they want to have, no, and maybe what they will have in the future. And also this idea of having a cross system, no, or like a cross ecosystem of actors that help you, no, in really, no, conceptualizing the problem, no, and having all the different perspectives that you want to have. Maybe Liat, I don't know if we have time for more questions or
we can mention that Marie McClellan, which is also from the Glasgow team and that I know very well, she's in the audience, and she wrote that they are very open to European exchanges, and they, care a lot about continuing this kind of approach. So to reach out to them for anything. So thank you, Marie, for that, and also happy to have you here. And yes, I think that we can move to really the last part where we try to close and also give everyone some next steps. And of course, we will share the information from both Cinisello Balsamo and Glasgow, and then hopefully the conversation continues. Okay. So thank you again. Thank you, Stevie, for the presentation. And I take the screen one more time for short conclusions and next steps. Okay, so we don't end, even if it is the fourth and last webinar, the work is not over for us. So I think a little bit of learning points from this webinar that really focused on the impact. So the measurement of impact is actually not so much of proving success or proving performance, but it is about learning and improving. No, so when we really want to see positive change happen, we have to treat it as a process. And the social data helps cities to understand what changes, for whom, and why. And this would then help, again, you remember the circle of prove and improve of the social impact. This helps us to prove and improve. The measurement definitely works best when you plan early. So it is embedded in an overall strategy, not added at the end. And this is what we see with the theory of change, that we start very early to even think where we want to be, okay? And we put it as part of the policy. We heard it from both of our guests. And Stevie even told us more that sometimes the work that they are doing with data then enters bigger programs that make out of it a framework, which is a little bit the vision that we also heard from Cinisello. It needs to be multidimensional. So what we just mentioned, the combination of quantitative and qualitative evidence, if there is a difference between the two and so on. So we can also always discuss these terms and understanding how do we want to use them, but definitely we need the bigger picture, the deeper picture. It depends a lot of what we want to do with this data and what are we trying to understand. And communicated clearly. So I hope that you all scanned the QR code that Stevie shared. Otherwise, if you look for the Child Poverty Reports Glasgow, you find them quite quickly. And if you look at that and how they are communicated, you will understand how clearly it becomes and how this data is transformed into a shared understanding rather than a bunch of numbers or a list of elements, or even very interesting and deep reports, but that are not then accessible to a wider audience. So I think this is also a very important learning point from the webinar. And the last point, we didn't see it strictly during the webinar, but we think it's important to mention that, of course, every indicators that we are speaking about in terms of sustainable development and urban sustainable development should be aligned also with the sustainable development goals. And so we can work together as a collective approach towards reaching the sustainable development goals, because we could say these indicators that we have here also relate to this goal, and so we can demonstrate collectively that we are actually contributing to a specific goal. The last word from me, and then I pass to Margit, is a little bit of what we still need to work on. And I think there is the issue of fragmentation. So data exists, but maybe it's not across departments or not shared across departments, right? So we can do a lot of things in silos matter, as many municipalities and local authorities do. And the cross-sector collaboration needs to share data, which brings us, of course, to privacy issues and technical issues and so on and so forth. But this is definitely something that needs work. Capacity, so the municipal team needs training to move from data collection to analysis to communication. So we really need to promote capacity building initiatives, but also peer learning or open source tools, okay, that everyone can use. I like the question if the indicators of Cinisello can be downloaded, because I think no one wants to start from zero, right? So sometimes when you're already doing something, the sharing of those indicators could really be a good thing to do. And then cultural barriers. So data may seem like a control, right? Not rather than dialogue. Even us, when someone asks us an evaluation of our work and so on, it can be seen as a control. And if we transform it, like the example of a failure, no, that we can not see it as a critic against ourselves, but as a way of moving forward, and reframe it as a conversation with the citizens, with our colleagues, with other cities, then I think it becomes easier. I pass the word to Margit to really close and give us some less reflections and an invitation as well for you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Liet. Indeed, I just wanted to close this webinar with a few reflections about what can still be done. And I think from today, but also the previous webinars we saw, if you go back one slide, sorry, indeed, that at the local level, indeed, there is still a lot that can be done, what cities can still do. And I think it was very interesting to see how we developed this policy loop, and also how important it is to link the data between the different departments, the projects, and the goals. So really to work with data in a more strategic way. Many cities started already in that sense, started to develop data strategies, and I think we just want to encourage everybody to do so. And I think the two examples that we saw today also showed that it's really valuable and worth going into that direction. We also saw that it's really worth investing in capacity building to move from the simple collecting of data into more this learning mode. And finally, I think it was also quite nice to see that you really managed to build a new culture around data, a culture of data where data is really shared, where it's a common project, it's shared and understood, and it's also used to improve the decisions at the local level. And having said that, of course, we also learn as a program, we also take it to the European level. And I think that's really the added value that we can also bring and that you can bring to Europe. We saw also how Liet explained that very clearly, how much it's worth to have shared frameworks. And you also mentioned it's so useful to have indicators for social impact and inclusion that are somewhat more resilient and also proved by a lot of experience and really developed in a co-decisive and co-designed way. And in that respect, we are very happy that we started a collaboration also with the initiative of the Cities of Equality Partnership, which is working under the European Agenda for Cities, under the European Agenda for the EU. And indeed, to work on a common and shared framework for assessing social policies. So this is just something I wanted to mention because we try to really follow up on the work that we did now with the Knowledge Hub and to bring it forward at the European level. And of course, we will also still continue to strengthen the support for cities and especially for the intercity cooperation to turn data into a collective knowledge that we can also promote further with URBACT and with our knowledge hubs. So to conclude, really our idea is to contribute from the program also to data for better cities so that we can measure the impact that connects evidence with empathy. And I think you showed that very well. Thank you very much for this, because it really helps cities to move from more isolated projects to really coherent and long-term strategies. And I think our common goal is to have a data culture that strengthens the trust. That was also very nicely to see today, the transparency, and also then collectively change and transform the cities. And in that sense, I would just like to invite you all to continue the cooperation and the conversation in our Knowledge Hub, to discuss also at the URBACT Festival, where we will present the results and also take a look at the upcoming guide. And to conclude, Please also give us a little feedback on our webinar series, especially this one today, because that would be helpful for us to assess whether this was useful for you. And I would like to conclude with thanking especially the speakers today. Thanks to Massimo, to Marika and Stevie from Cinisello Balsamo in Glasgow. Thank you very much. Thank you also to Liad for your great work, and to Mara, who was leading the work on the Knowledge Hub, and the rest of the expert team. You did a great job, and we're looking forward to the guide. So thanks a lot also to the participants for sharing your questions and your ideas. And I hope that we see you soon again. And goodbye. Have a good day.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Ciao a tutti.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.